child embodies our ultimate vision, that every Filipino learner will realize their full potential and ultimately reach their biggest dreams, no matter how high, no matter how hard, through quality education. And as our learners aim to soar, we must continue to elevate our goals.
The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented changes to our usual ways of living. But the Department of Education remains unfazed.
The child embodies our ultimate vision, that every Filipino learner will realize their full potential and ultimately reach their biggest dreams, no matter how high, no matter how hard, through quality education. And as our learners aim to soar, we must continue to elevate our goals. Rising, the kite is our emblem of aspiration to deliver the brand of quality in Philippine basic education. The quadrants of the soaring kite symbolize the key reform areas in forwarding this cause, as we embark on this aggressive reform to yield upskilled teachers, well-developed curriculum, improved learning environment, and responsive multi-stakeholder cooperation. Using the colors of our flag, the logo symbolizes our unity and serves as a reminder that it takes a nation to educate a child. Together, we as a nation will have to move forward and gain more momentum so that our vision of quality basic education for all shall take flight. Sama-sama sa pagsulong ng edukalidad.
Well, hello, Mrs. Morgan. Remember how hard it was to get your students' attention? Oh, Mr. Jeski. Any explosive ideas? And you, Mr. Fisher, the world keeps turning, right? Okay, we're past all that, because now we have Microsoft Educator Center. Trainings, courses, webinars, programs, badges, points, certificates. Join now and get yourself ready for the new school year. Teach your best.
Nang sumiklab ang giyera sa Marawi, maraming buhay at kabuhayan ang nawala. Maraming kabahayan at paaralan ang napinsala. Sa kabila ng matinding suliranin, naging matagumpay ang DepEd na mabigyan ang mga mag-aaral ng pagkakataong ipagpatuloy ang edukasyon at muling bumangon sa sitwasyon. Habang naghihintay sa pagkumpuni at pagsasaayos ng mga paaralan, nagkaloob ang DepEd ng mga temporary learning shelters, remedial classes, learning kits, at feeding programs para sa mga displaced learners. Nabigla ang lahat sa pag-alboruto ng Bulkang Taal. Libo-libong pamilya, kabilang ang mga guro at mag-aaral, ang nawalan ng tirahan at mga ari-arian. Mabilis ang naging tugon ng DepEd upang makapagpatuloy sa pag-aaral ang mga apektadong mag-aaral. Sinikap ng mga guro na turuan ang mga mag-aaral na pansamantalang tumuloy sa evacuation center. Tumama sa bansa ang COVID-19 pandemic, dahilan upang maantala ang normal na daloy ng pamumuhay at trabaho sa lahat ng sektor, kabilang na ang kagawaran ng edukasyon. Nang ipatupad ang Luzon lockdown, inilunsad ang DepEd Commons upang tuloy ang pagkatuto ng mga learners habang nasa bahay. Sa kabila ng mabigat na hamon sa ilalim ng new normal, patuloy na nagpunyagi ang DepEd upang maghanap at maghatid ng mga alternatibong pamamaraan upang magpatuloy ang edukasyon sa pinakaligtas at pinakaangkop na paraan. Sa ilalim ng Learning Continuity Plan, layunin ng DepEd na magpatuloy ang edukasyon nang hindi nakokompromiso ang kapakanan at kalusugan ng mga guro at mag-aaral. Isusulong ng DepEd ang tatlong pangunahing layunin: angkop na proteksyon, kaugnay ng mga health standards at safety protocols para sa ligtas na school year, patuloy na edukasyon sa pamamagitan ng blended learning, distance learning at homeschooling na angkop sa kapasidad ng bawat mag-aaral, at mabisang aksyon sa pakikipagtulungan sa lokal na pamahalaan at mga partner organizations upang maihatid ang dekalidad na edukasyon para sa lahat. Bawat DepEd division ay bumuo rin ng sarili nilang Learning Continuity Plan upang gabayan ang mga guro, mga magulang at mga mag-aaral sa bagong pamamaraan ng pag-aaral gamit ang online, modular at TV and radio-based instructions. Gamit ang iba't ibang learning modalities, nagdaos ng dry run ang mga paaralan sa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa, katuwang ang mga local government units at mga education partners upang maging handa sa bagong sistema ng edukasyon. Isinagawa rin ang mga pagsasanay at oryentasyon sa mga magulang upang maging epektibong katuwang sa pag-aaral ng kanilang mga anak. Sa anumang hamon o sitwasyon, handa ang DepEd. Handang kumilos, handang tumugon, at handang magserbisyo.
Ang dami ng mga pagsusubok at challenges ang naharap at napagtagumpayan ng ating Department of Education. Tuwing may pagsusubok, priority palagi natin ang ating learners at ang ating mga teachers sa tulong ng parents at saka partners at ang buong bansa. Ngayon, sa hinaharap natin itong new normal na sinasabi nila, matatag ang ating kagawaran, matatag ang DepEd, dahil pinagtibay na tayo ng panahon, kayang-kaya natin ito sa tulong ninyo.
G'day everyone, I'm Mark. As a teacher and a former principal, I know that professional learning often comes at the end of a very long day. But there are exciting, less structured ways to be in the driver's seat of your own lifelong learning. A great place to start is by engaging with our Microsoft Innovative Educator, or MIE, community. This global community is big, in fact it's enormous. Our MIEs love connecting. Monthly tweet meets are global gatherings of inspiring educators around big topics, and their Facebook group acts as a persistent home for discussions and shared activities. Another way teachers are learning within communities is through Microsoft Teams. Now, greater teacher collaboration improves teaching across schools, and Teams is the ultimate platform for a professional learning community. It's open-walled and socially embedded, so you can incorporate your OneNote Staff Notebook PLC and have access to all the goodness of video chat, phone, and collaboration tools. With Immersive Reader built in, it's inclusive and accessible on any device. Your learning community is just a click away. Last tip, our Microsoft Education Centre offers great ways to gain new skills with courses tailored uniquely to your needs. Make it a collaborative experience by picking a MEC course to do together with your peers. And as a bonus, you can practice collaborative learning by exploring a research paper, like the Class of 2030, and treat it just like a book club with your colleagues face-to-face or in teams. The link to that research, it's in the description. Remember, learning is socially embedded. It's best done together for students and for teachers. Happy learning.
The year 2020 brought new beginnings for the Department of Education. Ready to pivot towards attaining quality education, DepEd was hopeful of the challenges ahead of it. But as DepEd continued to work on its commitment, the world suddenly faced a steeper dilemma. Around the globe, countries like the Philippines had to shift their priorities to respond to a public health crisis brought by COVID-19. Schools had to be closed, activities had to be halted, graduation ceremonies had to be canceled, as people were urged to stay at home. A new normal dawned upon us. As soon as DepEd realized the impact of these disruptions in education, it began to proactively craft its learning continuity plan last April to ensure that learning opportunities will still be available. Consulting with partners and advisors through the Education Forum, as well as legislators, teachers, parents, learners, and the general public, DepEd made sure its LCP encompasses the concerns of the whole education sector in responding to the crisis. Its topmost priority being the protection of the health, safety, and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel. To make informed decisions, DepEd first analyzed relevant data and epidemiological picture for the incoming school year. DepEd also issued guidelines on its required health standards to be adopted in all public and private schools and DepEd offices following DOH and IATF protocols. It covers four COVID-19 mitigation objectives, namely, to increase physical and mental resilience, reduce transmission, reduce contact, and reduce duration of infection. The LCP also outlined how learning continuity will be ensured. It streamlines the K-12 curriculum into the most essential learning competencies and allows the use of distance learning, homeschooling, and blended learning modalities. Since conducting face-to-face classes will be a risk in most areas, DepEd has anchored its delivery of education to modular, online, TV and radio, or a combination of all. Guided by teachers, modular learning will allow learners to use self-learning modules in a format applicable to learners' capacity. In online distance learning, teachers will facilitate and engage learners' participation through the internet, whether synchronous or asynchronous. TV and radio-based instructions, on the other hand, are converted lessons fit for the broadcast medium. The LCP assures that all our learners, including our SPED, ALS, Madrasa students, can still access education even within the confines of their homes, and ensures that their household capacity will not hinder their right to education. To make this possible, our joint Brigada Escuela and Oplan Balik Escuela is assisting the preparations for the rollout of the LCP. On May 8, the LCP was approved by the IATF. The President also gave it his full support and expressed his commitment to meeting the financial demands of its execution. The implementation of the LCP will not be easy. It is not a perfect plan, and complications can be expected along the way. but extraordinary times call for extraordinary and proactive measures, and the Department of Education is ready to address the challenges along the way with the help of our national and local government, partners, parents, and learners. As one nation, learning opportunities shall be available in this brave new world for our Filipino children.
When you need the focus to be on you and not whatever that guy's doing, open Teams.
The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented changes to our usual ways of living. But the Department of Education remains unfazed by these challenges to fulfill the mission of Sulong Edukalidad, the rallying call for national effort to deliver quality basic education to all Filipinos, which involve aggressive reforms in the four key areas: the K-12 curriculum review and update, improving the learning environment, teachers upskilling and reskilling, and engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration to move forward together as we prepare the education system for the future. The call for Sulong Edukalidad will continue, and we have built the framework of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan, or the BELCP, to put the needs of the learners at top priority. DepEd's BELCP is the major response and commitment to protect the health, safety, and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel. The plan aims to provide opportunities to continue education even in these trying times with a BELCP in place, supported by an unprecedented number of diverse stakeholders from the academe, media, industry groups, NGOs, business and private individuals. Sulong Edukalidad will be able to sustain the aims in its reform for quality basic education. In our journey towards quality education, we have established the 4 pillars of aggressive reforms from the start, and we have been continuing to progress in these pillars. In improving the learning environment, we took action in the construction and rehabilitation of school buildings, ensured the availability of learning materials and equipment, and prioritized our last mile schools. The challenges of the pandemic also brought to light the urgent need to upgrade our ICT infrastructure to service the needs of education. In terms of the teachers upskilling and reskilling, we were able to establish more innovative professional standards for teachers and school heads. We have aligned the professional development of teachers with their career progression to track their development as part of the National Educators Academy of the Philippines transformation. With the launch of the Education Futures program, where we will be focusing on innovative actions and solutions to improve the state of our education, we are now more than ready to start a new journey and continue our fight for quality education for all Filipino learners. Finally, we've given high importance to the engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration. In support of this, we have convened the Philippine Forum for Accessible Quality Basic Education, or the Education Forum, which will leverage other partnerships for education quality and strengthen partnership with the Philippine Normal University as the country's national center for teacher education. The department has also been developing a professional development program for teachers and school leaders in order to equip them with the skills, materials, and data that will allow them to help their students prepare for PISA 2022. This intervention consists of the following components: online training for teachers and school leaders, development of learning materials and practice tests for students, deepening the analysis of the PISA 2018 results, and supporting school-level action research. Now that the year is about to end, our commitment to sulong edukalidad will continue and will be far from being gone. With a lot at stake, considering our new knowledge and experience from this year's challenges, we are equipped to face a new future. As we head on to the future where we will face many challenges and uncertainties, the department will always be the guardian of every Filipino learner's right to education.
Sino ba ang hindi naapektuhan? Sino ba ang hindi nag-alala? Sino ba ang hindi nalito? Lahat tayo ay naapektuhan. Lahat tayo ay nag-aalala. Lahat tayo ay nalito. Dahil binago ng pandemyang dulot ng COVID-19 ang paraan ng pamumuhay ng lahat ng mga Pilipino saan mang sektor ka nabibilang. Tumigil ang panandalian ang ating mga nakagawian. Tumigil ang lahat ng uri ng transaksyon. Tumigil ang lahat ng operasyon ng mga paaralan. Nakalilito. Nakakaba. Paano na ang kinabukasan ng mga kabataan? Paano na tayo sa hinaharap? Opisyal na nilulunsad ng Kagawaran ng Edukasyon sa pangunguna ng Office of the Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction ang DepEd Teaches. Ito ay isang online na programa na gagabay sa mga guro, tagapangasiwa, magulang at mag-aaral hinggil sa mga pagbabago sa batayang edukasyon ngayong new normal. Ang DepEd Teaches ay angkla sa sulong edukalidad na nakatuon sa apat na pangunahing pangangailangan ng mapunyaging reforma tungo sa makalidad na pagtuturo at pagkatuto. Una, pagre-review at pagsasapanahon ng kurikulum ng K-12. Ikalawa, pagpapaunlad ng kapaligiran pampagkatuto. Ikatlo, paglinang ng mga bagong kasanayan sa mga guro. At ang ikaapat, ang pakikipag-ugnay sa mga stakeholder para sa suporta at kolaborasyon. Sa pamamagitan ng virtual learning platform, ang DepEd Teaches ang magsisilbing bukas na komunidad ng pagsasanay na titipon sa mga guro, tagapamunong pang-edukasyon at sa sino mang may pagnanais sa pagtataguyod ng kalidad na edukasyon sa bansa at sa pagtagumpay ng bawat Pilipinong mag-aaral. Ang mga opisyal, education specialist, learning content expert at outstanding teacher ng DepEd ang magiging tagapanayam na magbabahagi ng kanilang kaalaman at kasanayan sa kurikulum, pagtuturo at pagkatuto, pagtataya at lahat ng kaugnay na mahalaga sa proseso ng pagtuturo at pagkatuto sa new normal. Bilang mga frontliner ng classroom, inaasahang magiging aktibo ang mga guro sa programang ito. Ang mga tema at paksa ay angkop sa kanilang pangangailangan at konteksto sa pamamagitan ng accessible na platform, ang social media. Sumali na sa OUCI family sa DepEd Teaches, kung sama-sama mapahuhusay pa ang mga guro, kung sama-sama higit na malilinang natin ang mga mag-aaral.
To all our 1,000 viewers, dear friends and fellow educators, we would like to greet everyone a blessed afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here again on our official Facebook page, the DepEd Teaches, DepEd Philippines, DepEd Tayo, and in DepEd YouTube channel. It is a delight to see you once again despite of the hectic schedule. You have never failed to participate in our live presentation here on DepEd Teaches. Hello, Miss Anna. How are you? What do you think so far of our recent episodes for assessment and reporting?
Okay, so pleasant afternoon, everyone. Hello, Sir July. So we've been learning so many wonderful things from our great speakers in the past, and I believe the motivation and clamor of our viewers to deepen their knowledge is unstoppable, for we've received consistent positive feedback since the pilot episodes. And for this theme, assessment and reporting, we started a discussion on the best practices that our teachers can adapt in providing academic support through practical intervention and remediation strategies. Then we revisited the principles of assessment, specifically validity and reliability, and how we can achieve this. If you notice, Sir July, our topics are very specific and tailor-fit that addresses the demands of our present time. So what we are after in this theme, assessment and reporting, is that how do you do assessment in various learning delivery modalities? Sir July, if you were a classroom teacher this school year, what questions do you have in mind in the context of assessment?
Yeah, Ma'am Anna, I would like to re-emphasize that idea that you opened, that the topics under assessment and reporting are really context specific, because we are trying to discover here is the type of and quality of assessment that we can provide in this new normal. And if I were still a classroom teacher, the biggest question or challenge is, what assessment should I prepare if I'm doing a modular-based instruction? Because most likely my learners can submit only paper-based assessment because they have limited resources. On the other hand, if I'm doing an online distance learning, what appropriate assessment will match the requirement of my subject vis-a-vis the features of the online applications and tools that I'm using to assess my students' learning. Overall, I am considering that there must be flexibility and accommodation on the type of assessment to be given to our learners. And we have also other forms or types of modalities like the TV-based instruction and the radio-based instruction. So what assessment will capture best the learning in these particular modalities?
You've pointed out so many good questions, Sir July, and I believe our viewers can totally relate to this. You know, assessment remains an indispensable component of instruction, and so we need to see a solid evidence that our learners are doing their part and they are accountable for what we've been providing to them, whether it's online modules or media-based like TV and radio. We want to gauge their learning because this is our basis whether our instruction is working or not. So the bottom line is that assessment is one of the possible indicators to measure the efficacy of the various learning delivery modalities that we offer.
I certainly agree to that, Ma'am Anna. Remember, the analogy of assessment is like an engine that drives us towards our goal. So if I were doing a modular-based instruction, I should not proceed to the next module or to the next destination unless I have seen enough and I have a clear picture that my learners have mastered the standards and the competencies laid down in that particular module. And if not, that is where remediation and intervention strategies would come into play. But before we reach to this point, the first thing that we normally do is that we have given them summative assessments and formative tasks. But because we are not doing the regular face-to-face instruction, I think the big question is what type of assessment should be given for the summative test and performance tasks. And of course, we are concerned whether the students themselves are the ones completing the task. Or how can we ensure that they are or they can execute the task even with minimal supervision? And so there are many factors to consider. And these are the things that we want to address in this episode today.
Hopefully, we get some answers to these questions. For today, we will talk about understanding non-traditional assessment and various learning delivery modalities. And before we proceed to the main presentation, let's have some check-in activity while we are still waiting for others to join us. So in today's challenge, you have to guess the type of assessment based on the clues from the set of pictures. So the answer should be an example of assessment. The picture may not completely resemble the exact sound of the syllable of the target word, but using your imagination, vocabulary, and prior knowledge, we are confident that you'll be able to name the type of assessment based on the given pictures. So we will be asking for questions, and so we expect for examples of assessment. Feel free to share with us your answers in the comment section of our Facebook page. You are given 30 seconds for each question. Are you ready? So this is just for fun, and at the same time, there is learning because you might discover new vocabulary. So for the first question, please show the picture. This is an example of a non-traditional assessment that is applicable to all subjects, where the students showcase their strengths and progress. Can you guess the type of assessment based on the pictures? All right. So the correct answer is portfolio. Can we show them the answer? Right. So from the syllable from the word port, like seaport, then sounds like fall, like in autumn, and yo, which describes the movement of an airplane, like side to side movement. Portfolio. Okay, or portfolio. Okay. Sir July for the second question.
Thank you, Ma'am Anna. I think that first question is very challenging indeed. So let's now proceed with our second challenge. Let's show them our picture. This type of assessment promotes metacognition, and it can be done through oral or written mode. It is usually done individually, but other people's insight can help you understand better the process and outcome as well. So again, guess the type of assessment based on this set of pictures for 30 seconds. All right. I think we're ready now to show them the answer. Okay, so the correct answer for that second question or picture is reflection. So the first illustration or picture is a referee. Then the second picture is a flower. So we mean there a fleck. That's a pink flower with a fleck of yellow, meaning a spot of yellow. And the third one meaning shun. Shun means to avoid deliberately someone or something. So that is reflection.
All right. So for the third set of pictures, okay. So this type of assessment involves analysis and investigation. What type of assessment do you think is it? Okay. Very easy, very obvious. All right. So to our viewers, what is the correct answer? Let's show them the answer. Okay, so that's a case study. So the first picture refers to a case like a luggage or a container. Then the second picture stud, like animals, especially horses that are kept for breeding. And the third picture, very easy, as simple as letter D. So case study. Okay.
So for our last picture and last challenge, so let's show them now the picture. So this is a life skill that our learners must master. Okay, it means asking the right question and responding to appropriately to a query or inquiry. So again, this is a life skill that our learners must master by asking the right question and responding appropriately to inquiry or queries. So guess now this type of assessment based on this set of pictures for 30 seconds. Okay, so what's the answer for this? So let's reveal the answer now. Okay, the correct answer is interview. So the first syllable is in, which from or comes from time in. So you have there the time. Okay. For the second syllable, it's ter, a Latin affix which means three. So for example, tertiary. And the third syllable would be a scenery or a view. So the correct answer there is interview. All right. So if we will recap the words that we asked to our reviewers, the following are the answers: portfolio, case study, reflection, and interview, which are examples of assessment. And these types can be used in various modalities. I hope it was a good mental exercise to everyone. And this sets the mood for our presentation today.
Awesome, Sir July. So that was interesting and I guess a bit challenging also. You know, they say that we process information based on what we see. So using visuals is one way to enhance instruction. At this point, we hope everyone is ready to listen now to our invited resource speaker. Dr. Olga C. Alonsabe was a secondary school teacher from Teacher 1, Teacher 2, Teacher 3, and later promoted as a head teacher in Misamis Oriental General Comprehensive High School. Later on, she was appointed as the school principal in Aplaya National High School, Santa Ana National High School, and Tagoloa National High School. After 2 years as a school head in these three schools, she was appointed as an education program supervisor in science in the division of Misamis Oriental. After passing the superintendent exam and career executive service eligible, she was appointed as assistant schools division superintendent in the divisions of Iligan City and Gingoog City. She was then designated as OYC schools division superintendent in the division of Gingoog City and presently in El Salvador City division of Region 10.
Our speaker obtained her bachelor's degree in education, major in biology from the Xavier University, certificate program in science teaching at the University of the Philippines Open University, master degree program in education from the University of Asia and Pacific, and PhD in educational management from the Capital University. She attended trainings sponsored by the CIMEO Ignotec for school heads and for flexible learning tutor, superintendent's leadership program, career executive service board leadership training, and the Asian Institute of Management Bridging Leadership Program. She has been a trainer in school heads development program, financial management, revitalized homeroom guidance program, and the portfolio assessment in the K-12 basic education program. Please welcome now the Schools Division Superintendent of Division of El Salvador City, DepEd Region 10, Dr. Olga C. Alonsabe.
My warm afternoon greetings to all the viewers of DepEd Teaches, to all the DepEd officials, especially our leader, our Honorable Secretary Leonor Magtulis Briones, to our Region 10 Regional Director, Arturo Bayucot, of course, our teachers and non-teaching staff in the whole Department of Education. Good afternoon, mayong hapon sa tanan. This time of pandemic brought us a lot of changes in the way we deliver quality basic education. One of the many concerns is on assessment. And so it is fitting that the whole month of this DepEd Teaches episode deals on assessment. So the topic that I would like to share to you is again assessment, but focusing on the alternative assessment tool that is fitting to what we now call the new landscape in educational setting. So let me share to you my slides on this alternative assessment in the new learning modalities. So as you can see, assessment is very much associated with some terms like test. So all the types of tests, true, false, fill in the blanks, multiple choice. It is also, the word assessment is also associated with measurement. Measurement in the sense that we would like to measure how much the students learn. It is also associated to evaluation. So from this word evaluation, we take the value of the test scores and make a judgment whether the student is already competent or not, worthy to be given a certain rating, and the value of letting him be able to evaluate his learning with a judgment that we can let him pass or fail. So that's the word evaluation, means passing judgment, whether the student is able to master the competencies that is expected to him. So assessment really entails a lot of things. But let's see the formal definition. Assessment is a collection of information about what students know and what they are able to do. So from this word collection, it means that it is not only taken from one aspect. Collection means a lot of tools, a lot of instruments are being conducted and facilitated so that we can get information about the student's performance, about what he knows and what they're able to do. So the knowledge and of course the performance of the students are being assessed. So when our students will be able to pass through the different key stages, and will graduate from our schools, in most cases, of course, they will have to look for a job. And so when the employers will have, prospective employers will have to go through the documents, and during the interview, he may ask this question: are these learners that we have ready for the world of work? So this question might be given. So the employer or the interviewer may ask, I see you did well in school, but what real-world skills do you have? So the prospective employee may take that question with his answer, with a question on what real-world skills do you have? So he said here, test, meaning he underwent a lot of tests, and those performance in the transcript of records will tell him that he has that skill in taking the test. So said he, test, I can take tests. So is this really what we mean? So a lot of questions in the minds of people if our getting these skills that we wanted him to employ in the world of work. So much questions are being asked, especially this year, that we are in the pandemic times, but still we pursue, we let the education continue. So everything revolves around performances of the students that we will have to take. Assessment performances then are day-to-day activities that can also be authentic and engaging demonstrations of students' abilities to grapple with the central challenges of a discipline in real-life context. So I would like you to focus on the word as authentic. So thus, assessment that is considered now in our discussion about alternative assessment is what we call as authentic assessment. So thus, alternative assessment is also known as authentic assessment. You know this, and you have heard this many times. So let us compare then, why do we need to take this alternative? Previously, you know about assessment associated with tests. So thus, the word traditional assessment is being taken. Traditional assessment is a single occasion test measuring what learners can do at a particular time. So take note, it's a single occasion test. So you have the summative test that you know from the previous session. It's all about quarter test, chapter test, that we give usually grades. Well, if you have to consider the alternative assessment, this assesses higher order thinking skills, which can be very difficult to measure in a traditional type of test. You cannot measure singly the higher order thinking skills. And when you say HOTS, you always remember those who are with us in this teaching job knows about Benjamin Bloom. So Benjamin Bloom talks about the levels of knowledge that our students can acquire through our teaching learning process, from the knowledge level up to the higher order. So knowledge level simply is lower order. So when we go higher up to evaluation, for which we now call creativity that is being developed, we are now dealing with higher order thinking skills. Another way by which we can compare this traditional and alternative assessment is that the traditional assessment produces test scores that cannot tell the progression of the learner. So a while ago, we were telling that it's a single type of assessment. So it cannot measure the progression of the learner. While if we have to adopt the alternative assessment, this focuses on the growth and the performance of the learner over time. So thus, from the beginning of the year, of the school year up to the time that the student will receive the rating, whether he can pass or not for the next higher level, there is now a story about his growth and performance. So we can only take this from this alternative type of assessment. Traditional assessment also does not provide meaningful feedback to the learner, simply because we deal on the items only and counting how many correct answers the students have. While in the alternative, this provides an opportunity to demonstrate ability at a different time or situation if the learner fails in a task. So if the learner fails in a particular task, he knows where is it. And there's the opportunity to to demonstrate can vary depending on the student's capability. The traditional assessment also requires learners to display their knowledge in a predetermined way. What is this predetermined way? When we want to measure the learning of the students, we can test, for example, multiple choice or true, false, or fill in the blanks. So we already have a way to determine how much you know. That's what predetermined. It's the teacher who determines the type of tool that he wishes to use so that he will know whether the students acquire the competencies. While in the alternative, this is the beauty of the alternative assessment. It allows the learners to express their knowledge of the material in their own ways using various intelligences. So we know about multiple intelligences. So if a student is good in music, then we can always give him a chance to demonstrate his knowledge by making use of his musical ability. And so with other things like those who are good in dancing, those who are good in making stories or speeches, then they can demonstrate what they learned through that modality. So that's it between traditional and alternative. Now let us try to look deeper into what are these traditional assessment tools. So since this is traditional, we have been into this, and many of you like me who devoted their life in teaching, we know so much about these traditional assessment tools. But just a sort of review. One of these tools is through true-false test. Here, the student will have to choose between two sides, yes or no. And then the multiple choice test, they will have to make their capacity or their skills in making choices, whether A, B, C, or D. That depends on what they know. Essays also are considered as traditional when we give one question and then we already have in mind as a teacher what are those key words that we would like to give points. So that's predetermined. You also have short answer tests. So these are all types of traditional assessment tools that we have been using for a lot number of years. And these are the traditional assessment tools that we are thinking when we made some comments as to how can we measure whether the students are learning or not. Because we are used to the face-to-face when we can see those students taking the test and then we'll say, focus only on your test, do not mind other or your classmates' answers. So this is where we have some difficulty in this new learning landscape when all our students are in their respective homes. So we question about honesty. No? It's because we have this type of assessment. Now, so what would be the best thing, or what can be an alternative way of measuring or assessing the students' learning? So we have now the alternative or performance assessment. For so long a time, we have been using many of this one. But let us try to make this alternative assessment as really a form of assessment. Even questioning students, even at the beginning, you ask questions to the students, how much they learn, what comes to their mind when they hear a certain thing. That is already assessment. But then, let us put that in a proper perspective. So, some of these assessment strategies, which are called alternative or performance-based, are the following: open-ended questions, exhibits, demonstrations, computer simulations, portfolios, and projects. Surely these are not new to you, but we have to consider and appreciate the value of these assessment strategies while we are in a new normal or new landscape or distance learning modality. Let's try to take a look into each one of these. Perhaps you can think this type, one of these can be used in my subject. Remember, as we have to go through take a look or remember the subject you're teaching, remember the students, remember the subject matter, remember the parents, remember the learning environment, and of course, your own capability. Which one of this or whichever you can combine so that it can give justice to what you are teaching. So the first one is called open-ended question. From the word itself, open-ended. So it does not require a simple yes or no answer. This requires learners to elaborate on the points. So you know how the mind of the student will work if you have to ask questions. Help the teacher see things from the learner's perspective as the teacher gets feedback in the learner's own words instead of stock answers. So you see here, own words. So you can really tell if the students are learning because he will be thinking. Socrates is very famous in this contribution about questions because our mind, when we hear a question, our mind will work. It will really search for an answer. So what type of questions will you have to ask that will be considered open-ended? So you have these examples like, tell me more about, okay? So, sorry, even if this is not a question, when the teacher will have to ask a follow-up question like, tell me more, of course, the student will have to look for a lot of ideas in his mind. And then we have question on why, how, or questions like, how does that makes you feel? Can you give me an example of, or can you describe that for me? These are some of the open-ended questions that will really allow the students to make use of his skills in thinking. So we believe that everyone has the capacity to think, to search for the truth, to search for an answer in his mind. So let's proceed. Another assessment strategy that is called alternative or authentic is called exhibits. These are high-stakes demonstration of mastery that occurs at a culminating academic moment. You take a look into this culminating academic moment, meaning at the end of the lesson or at the end of the course, so go back to the competency about performance, and then your students will be able to get and give you the output in the form of what we call exhibits. These actually are summative assessments, but the process of building up a final exhibition includes ongoing assessment, feedback, and revision. So how can we make use of this? Because like, for example, art exhibit, and then the student will have to post their posters, anything that pertains to art if you have an art exhibit. How will you know if the students are really dealing on this one? So to make it more authentic, every time that you require this exhibit, you also have to include sort of reflection paper as to how did the students make use or come up with this output. So of course, the face-to-face modality is a very good way by which we can observe students where before they made the drawing, what are their experiences, and you can really observe them. But again, in this time, in this new modality that we now have distance learning, how can you see the student making this exhibit? So one way is to require him to write a reflection paper, meaning you make the student be able to write something about the experiences in making the exhibit. So that way you can determine how the student the experiences of the students and the feedback, and how did he revise his work. So in that reflection, you may say, you may ask the student to write as many ideas as they can relating to how they make the exhibit, and assure them that when they will write there that they did it several times, it's okay for as long as they are learning. So this one can be made more usable or relevant when the exhibits that they will have can also include sort of narratives on how they made the certain exhibit. Okay, so you have also demonstration. The demonstrations involve practical examinations, skill demonstrations, or simulations, in which the learner actually demonstrates prior learning as it relates to the learning outcomes of a course. From the word itself, demonstration, this is really an authentic type of assessment, as you will see the student observe them demonstrating their skills. And this is applicable even in the kindergarten, when they will have to demonstrate how to make a certain thing, the how-to. In the case of high school, the more. In senior high school, the more you use this demonstration type of assessment. Another is computer simulation. This is again an alternative assessment strategy, as this may allow learners to use their knowledge to solve creative tasks requiring combinations of knowledge from the different fields. You know, this is the 21st century when they said every information that you wish can be taken from the computer. So it is now in the hands of teachers to motivate students to make some of their students who has the capacity and who has the ability, the gadgets at home, for them to make use of the computer in the making of some, or in generating new information or knowledge. So that is how the students can be stimulated in research, and then they will have to simulate a certain thing like processes in the company or in the plant, and then they will have to make simulation using the computer. So again, those who has the capacity can do this. And of course, it starts with the teacher. The very popular type of authentic or alternative type of assessment is portfolio. So I have been into this portfolio development seminar, teaching teachers how to inspire students to develop a portfolio. Portfolios consist of student work that display mastery of skill. So display, so meaning all the evidences of their learning are being compiled and developed into a portfolio. Purposeful collection of students' work that exhibit the learner's efforts, progress, and achievement in one or more areas of the task and expression. So I've seen a lot of portfolio, very nice portfolio, if the teacher also know how to make a portfolio. No? It is well developed in such a way that you can really see the growth. You can really see the development of learning as the student go through the process in the whole school year. Now, for today, we have what we call e-portfolios. Again, using the internet, you have a lot of software how to make the e-portfolio electronic. So this time, paperless, and the students still will have to adapt the development of the portfolio. All the evidences of learning are placed in the e-portfolio, and it is systematically kept, so that at anywhere, anytime, both the student and the teacher, and even their parents, can see the progress of their students by looking at the e-portfolios, where their simulation, where their outputs, their reflections are being placed, and even test results are there. So you see very nice yung e-portfolio, and I'm sure you have one session in this DepEd Teaches all about the development of portfolio. Projects, again, very popular type of assessment strategy that is considered alternative. This may be created individually or as a group. That depends on the situation or the subject matter or the task. So this development, examples of this are the plans. So you make the students develop a plan about how they can improve the system in the government, whatever, or the garbage disposal facilities. They can have a project here. Research proposals, multimedia presentations. So you see this whole year, I'm sure you have explored this, especially those, again, with internet capability and the gadgets, multimedia presentations where the students will have to make a project using that, okay? So you see a lot of things. I am just discussing here 6 very popular assessment strategies which you can use. I'm sure as you go along, you discovered another type of alternative assessment. I hope you can share that also. So in this distance learning, distance education, be it through our printed or modular or online, whatever blended strategy, the individual works developed individually by the students are sent by regular mail or by email. Okay? So again, that depends on your students. These are some of the assessment strategies that we now use in the distance education. I learned this from a lot of teachers after months of this school year. They have discovered a lot of things, how they can assess the students. Assessment here based on contributions for group discussions, the tests that they are making, which can automatically handled by computer programs. So there are a lot of things, including term papers, the usual term papers, but then you can make use again of the distance education way of making the term papers, of course paperless, send it to the professors or what. And then oral or written tests conducted in the presence of the teacher. Sometimes through video conference, like the teacher will say, open your camera while taking the test, or with a remote assistant. There are many ways by which we can still give the test to the students. In our modules, many were commenting that the modules have tests, but the answer keys are also present, okay? But remember, it pertains to formative assessment, where the student will have to take the test and then check whether they are correct or not, and then they can reflect whether they are missing some point or there are misconceptions, and this time they can ask the teacher whatever means, by text, by call, by mail or email, messenger, in any ways. That's the reason why there are answer key, because it is for the student to analyze what went wrong and what went well in his test, okay? So why do we have to shift to alternative assessment when we are already in our comfort zone in making tests, just give it to the student via email, whatever? Why? Again, the COVID-19 brought us and forced us to use this alternative assessment because of its benefits. One is that it developed the learner's independent study skills. Okay, naturally, it's because the student learn alone and they will have to take the test alone and then they will have to reflect. The home learning partners, the parents, are the facilitators in their respective homes, and they can also be the resource person. But generally, in principle, the independent study skills should be developed. Another is it promotes educational dialogue between the teacher and the learner. This is what I was telling about exchanging messages, text messages, communicating to the parents or to the teacher. Educational dialogue. So even in the Facebook, when they can post their exhibit, and then the teacher will comment, and then the owner or the learner can also give his thoughts about the output of his work. Okay? So another benefit is that it helps identify and deal with the learner's misconceptions. Identify and deal with learners' misconception. This is very important because remember, our students pass only a certain stage once. if we let him pass and there are still misconceptions in his mind, it will linger. It will be there for a number of years. So it's very difficult now to correct. But with the alternative learning system, with the alternative assessment tools, you can say that this misconception can be identified and then sabay, if the growth of the learner can be seen because some misconceptions are corrected and the learning will be enhanced. Another is that it gives direction to learning in key subject areas. Direction is important. That's why in everything that we do as a teacher, before we give the lesson, there is what we call objectives. So the direction is important. So in the same way, these objectives are given when we have to consider the alternative assessment. Next is that it relates learning to learners' work and experiences. What do you mean by this? If you are familiar with our term, which we call contextualization, it means that we have to consider the experiences of the learner so that whatever we give can be made more meaningful to the learners. And the more, when it comes to assessment, it has to relate to the work and experiences of the learners. Another is that it permits learners to assess their progress. What do you mean by this? Permit learners to assess their progress. Again, we are developing individuals who are independent learners. So with that, we allow learners to assess their progress, recording their own progress, and this can be seen clearly when we make use of the portfolio. Next, it provides fair, valid, reliable assessment. This indicates to teachers the quality of teaching in the subject. Provide fair, valid, reliable assessment. It's because we are not giving one-shot type of test. Thus, it's reliable because it will pass through the test of validity, of course, and reliability, which was discussed last week by Dr. Vergara, Shirley. This indicates to teachers the quality of teaching in a subject. It provides feedback about strengths and weaknesses of the study materials. Feedback, how the students were doing in the test or in any of the assessment instruments. So those are the benefits. Why do we have to shift? Because for so many years we have been into the traditional assessment, but sadly, all the results from the international, national, regional, or even in the school level type, the results of the test generally are not giving us a positive result. So why do we have to stick to traditional when we can make use of alternative? So when we have to decide to make the alternative assessment, there are ways by which we can improve it. One is that we have to select assessment tasks that are clearly aligned or connected to what has been taught. Again, this diagram will allow us that everything that we have to do for our class has to be considered in terms of goals. There should be learning goals and objectives, and then these are the basis for choosing the teaching learning activities. And this one also are the basis for making the feedback and assessment. And the assessment will be a way by which we can evaluate whether or not we have achieved the objectives. So these two headed arrows tells us that it's interconnected. And the very important term here is alignment. We have to align our assessment tasks with the goals and the learning activities. Okay? So Another way is to share the scoring criteria for the assessment task with the students prior to working on the task. What is this scoring criteria? You will have to communicate to the students how we will have to rate them. Because remember, assessment also relates to rating, grades. So, to guide the students, they have to be given the chance to know how they will be assessed. So it can be through a rubric. So how much are you going to give in terms of the language used, the mechanics, or the presentation of the project, everything they have to know. That's one way to improve more this alternative assessment tool. The third one is to provide students with clear statements of standards and or several models of acceptable performance before they attempt a task. This is the reason why we give example. But this example should be something that is close or if not to answers the standard so that the student will have a model as to how is this. Thus, you can give them references as to how they will have to consider their projects, their exhibits, research. Give them the references. You can also give them examples. Thus, it is very important that the students will be given a clear statement of standards. What are expected of them? So that they will also be guided and will become satisfied and confident of their output. Next is to encourage students to complete self-assessment of their performance. So there are self-assessment, like in our modules, be it printed or online, there are self-assessment instruments, and the students should have that. For those who are familiar with the CMEO modules, you have their assessment tools, right? It's a self-assessment so that the student will be able to know whether they are already proficient in a certain competency. Like, for example, here, the student self-assessment. Simply, I can. So this one, I can statement. It's about their competencies. So they will have to check, I can manipulate the microscope, or I can recite the poem. I can. So simply I can, and then the student will have to choose the answer whether they really can do it. So the students self-assess their understanding. The students write an I can statement. The students give an example or explain. So they can choose, I can do it confidently, I still lack the knowledge. So that is very important because they will be given an opportunity to assess whether they can really do it. So this comes in varied forms. A lot of these examples from the net if you are interested. Next is that it interprets students' performances by comparing them to standards that are developmentally appropriate, as well as to other students' performance. Take note, developmentally appropriate. Do not give tasks to the pupils that they cannot at a certain stage of their life, like a grade 1. You don't need to give them a very difficult task that is not expected of a grade 1 learner. In the same way that you have to ask whether these grade 10 students are capable of a certain task, but it should not be too simple for them. It should be challenging. That is the meaning of developmentally appropriate. Next, here, the point is about this alternative learning assessment is very important for us teachers. Why do we have to consider adopting alternative or authentic type of assessment? I would like you to think about this. So when we consider the main characteristics of distance learner, you know them well. You have been with them for months already. The alternative assessment seems to be more beneficial. The characteristics of our distance learner today, many, I'm not saying all, I know that we still have the group that are in the disadvantaged areas. What type of learners do you have? Do you think the traditional assessment still fits them? So the main characteristics of alternative assessment greatly benefit the distance learners, considering that they are living very far, considering that the teachers cannot give them the time to have a face-to-face, especially today, this COVID-19 comes in different forms, the variants where we have to consider lives, very important. However, it might not be possible to implement alternative assessment strategies all the time. Here, all the time. So sometimes, or that depends on the situation. It is not possible that we have to stick on one. So at the end, you can ask, and I will have to consider you to take your time to think of the answer. Which type of assessment, therefore, is more appropriate for distance learning? Will it be the traditional or alternative? Still, it's your choice, but our Department of Education come up with a lot of guidelines as to the way by which we can make assessment for our students still possible in these difficult times. But you have to study it, take the advantages and disadvantages, whether alternative or traditional, because there are no best way to assess distant learners. No best way. Since we are considering the uniqueness of every individual, then our assessment will also be unique to that individual. There are pros and cons of both types of assessment. You know it, advantages and disadvantages. And a balanced approach between traditional and alternative assessment is critical. It's really critical because here, when we say everything should be exhibit, so what will happen to the rest? So there has to be a balance. While deciding what assessment strategy to use, teachers need to consider issues such as content of your subject matter. Consider that. Another factor is the context, the reality of the place, the audience, your learners, the parents also are our learners today, among others. Again, consider these issues, very important. So having clearly defined the objectives, teachers need to utilize appropriate assessment tools. Depending on the nature of the instruction, a combination of various assessment techniques might be useful. So just explore. Everything is given in the internet, in all the webinars you attended, and all the LAC sessions in your school. It's your choice now whether you stick to the old or traditional, because we are open to a lot of strategies in terms of assessing the student learning in this new landscape. So I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to everyone, especially to our DepEd Teach viewers, our teachers and non-teaching staff in the division of El Salvador City. I hope you are listening and you are viewing, because there are a lot of things that we can learn in these episodes of DepEd Teaches. I'm very thankful to the team for reaching our teachers, because they are the ones that we have to take good care as they deliver the quality basic education, all for the love of our learners. Good afternoon, and thank you very much. If ever you have some questions, you can post it, and we'll try to
So thank you so much, SDS Olga Alonsabe, for a very engaging and meaningful presentation. We are confident that our viewers have a lot of takeaways and realizations today. All right, just keep on sharing your insights and learning here on DepEd Teaches comment section. Don't forget to use the hashtag ISupportDepEdTeaches, and hashtag DepEd Teaches episode 17.
All right. So again, thank you so much, SDS Alonsabe. So for few reminders, so for episodes 15 to 18, we only have a single registration. If you haven't registered yet, you can see on the screen the link right now. So that covers for all the episodes under assessment and reporting. And we will have the evaluation next week. All questions will come from episodes 15 to 18 before you receive your certificates of participation and appearance. Okay, you can rewatch all episodes on our official Facebook page, DepEd Teaches. So we hope you join us again in the next episode.
Once again, on behalf of the Curriculum and Instruction Strand, thank you so much for being with us today, and let us never stop learning, for life never stops teaching. Just like here on DepEd Teaches, our mission is empowering teachers, enabling learners. A pleasant afternoon, everyone.